If Beijing's traffic is any barometer of China's diplomacy, these weeks are particularly busy. From the end of March till the beginning of April, China will have received 5 successive national leaders from global south countries, including Dominica, Nauru, Sri Lanka, Nepal and Kazakhstan. The dignitaries have been warmly received by top Chinese leaders, including President Xi Jinping and Premier Li Qiang, and agreements have been reached to further deepen ties. So why such hectic activities? What do these visits have in common, and what do they mean for the wider international community? I'm pleased to be joined from Shanghai by Yin Zhiguang, professor at the School of International Relations and Public Affairs at Fudan University, and from Maryland, the US, by Sourabh Gupta, senior Asia-Pacific International Relations Policy Specialist at the Institute for China-America Studies. Gentlemen, welcome to The Point. So just to give people an idea of the kind of activity that's been blocking the streets of Beijing, if I may. Now, on Saturday, March 23rd, Prime Minister of the Commonwealth of Dominica, a country in the Caribbean, Roosevelt Skerrit, arrived in China to start a 6-day official visit on the occasion of 20 years of diplomacy. Now, on Monday, he was received by Chinese President Xi Jinping, who called bilateral ties a good example of South-South cooperation. On March the 24th, President David Yang of the Republic of Nauru in the South Pacific arrived in Beijing for a state visit that's 2 months after the country resumed diplomatic relations with China. President Xi Jinping had an in-depth exchange of views with President Yang. The two sides issued a joint statement and agreed to boost practical cooperation. The next day, Sri Lankan Prime Minister Dinesh Gunawardena started an official visit to China. He was received by his Chinese counterpart, Premier Li Qiang, during which Li encouraged more companies to invest in Sri Lanka, more Chinese companies, of course, and expressed the willingness to increase imports of quality products from Sri Lanka, while Gunawardena pledged Sri Lanka will work with China to solidly advance the Belt and Road cooperation. On the same day, Nepal's Deputy Prime Minister and Prime Minister for Foreign Affairs, Narayan Shrestha, embarked on an official visit to China. This is his first official overseas visit after taking office. Both sides are expected to cement their traditional friendship and good neighborliness. And from March the 28th to the 30th, Kazakhstan's Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs, Murat Nurtliho, will pay an official visit to China and attend the first China-Kazakhstan Foreign Ministers' Strategic Dialogue. So a lot is going on indeed. Professor Ng, let me go to you first. Why the lineup? Why so many global south or developing countries seem to be coming to China all around the same time?
All right. Thank you very much for having me here. And I think this is not the first time that the global south countries has been interested in visiting China, and it certainly won't be the last. And I think it demonstrates a continuing devotion of China towards South-South collaboration, and it demonstrates to the entire world that how important China sees the connection with the global South country and addressing the common problem that the global South countries are facing, which is development and having a true multipolar world, and having the possibility to choose from different ways of enhancing their own capabilities and here.
Professor Gupta, we have you from India. There's nothing about why we choose an Indian guest, originally India. I have you on the show because of your objective opinion, as always, and your very insightful comment. So how do you look at the fact that these countries seem to be, coincidentally arriving here? Is it because really this is a busy springtime, a good time to visit, and people don't want to wait longer? Or is there some kind of trend really demonstrated here?
Well, I wouldn't call it a trend per se. This is a continuation of China's outreach to the global south and the global south's outreach to China. President Xi has talked about pathways to modernization, and he's talked of it fairly often And he's talked of alternative pathways to modernization. There is not just one pathway to modernization. And China has blazed a trail in terms of its own pathway to modernization. And all these countries are developing countries looking forward to become modern, advanced economies. And they would like to blaze their own little trails too. And this is a chance to learn from China and also find ways to cooperate with China. So I think China has made a great emphasis on global South cooperation. Just within the last 3 years, we've had this global development initiative, global security initiative, global civilization initiative, all of which are located in global multilateralism, UN-centered global multilateralism. This is something which appeals to countries of the global South and should appeal to, frankly, all countries in the UN system. But it's cherished and valued by these countries. And this is a good time to come to China now that the big political meeting or the two sessions meeting is over. And now it's time to, again, move forward with diplomacy. And I think it's going to be a lot of active diplomacy with the global South, but also with important countries in the global North.
Professor Ng, do you agree? And also, what concrete agreements have been achieved between the two sides among the different countries? Do you see a commonality there?
I absolutely agree. I think this is a great time, and it shows China's determination in working together with the global South countries and the world in large. And in terms of concrete achievements, and I think the emphasis on utilizing the existing framework, such as Belt and Road, and enhancing it, and continuing to press on the importance of high quality open door policy and the enhancement of our national capacity across the world, uplifting poverty, all sorts of things, focusing on infrastructures, all sorts of things are considered as concrete.
So I also noticed, yes, the word high quality Belt and Road cooperation being mentioned repeatedly among these meetings. Another thing that's also very interesting is, as reflected in the joint statement between China and Nauru, that the two sides agreed that all countries, regardless of size, strength, and wealth, are equals. And also, I see that message being reiterated here and there among the meetings between the leaders of China and the visiting countries. Gupta, this is a principle, of course. Some people would say it's very easy to say, but what you're doing, you're probably not doing it. But why is it important for China to stress this point and repeatedly?
I think it's a very important point to stress for a couple of reasons. One is we have the UN-centered multilateralism, but we are unfortunately also in parallel, we are seeing countries devolving or at least wanting to devolve into bloc-like formations. This goes against the very concept of global multilateralism. And therefore, I think it's important at this point of time to speak to the fact that whether you're small or big, your primary affiliation should be with the global multilateral system. We've also had unfortunate statements come out from time to time. Secretary Blinken, it wasn't too long back, I think sometime earlier this year, he talked about either you're at the table or you're on the menu. And that doesn't sound right. It is not right. And it just as a matter of principle, it is not the way global geopolitics should be approached, even if one tends to think that we're breaking down into great power rivalry, which I don't think is necessarily needed or should be the case, because I think the major countries have enough reasons to cooperate with each other. But I think it is some of these unfortunate winds which are floating in the atmosphere, which need to be tamped down. And I think this is a great example of cooperation. When was say Dominica? When did the Prime Minister of Dominica or Nauru get to the White House last? Is it 1980s? It might be something like that. And this is, I think, just to show to the international system that we are at bottom, we are all one, we are equal, and each one has one vote at the United Nations General Assembly, and that we need to approach global politics from that standpoint, which is again a message in the global security initiative and the global civilization initiative too.
Yeah. For anybody who may be wondering whether what China's position is concerning the current international order, the Managing Director of International Monetary Fund, or IMF, Kristalina Georgieva, and President of the World Bank Group, Ajay Bonga, have been received by Chinese Premier while they're in China to participate in a very high level. So in case there is doubt that China is shifting away its commitment from the current international structure, we also have, of course, the efforts by China to open up and to strengthen or stabilize relations with other Western countries. Professor Yin, what is China trying to balance here in terms of diplomacy, being a very important member of the Global South, but also trying to stabilize its relationship with the Global North? What is China's strategy here, according to you?
Well, I think a true multilateralism emphasizes on the equality of all, not necessarily, but under a certain hegemon. So what China is doing is to demonopolizing the global political structure and financial structure that supports it by first recognizing the importance of the existing structure, but at the same time by emphasizing the importance of introducing more choices for the world, choices of political and international infrastructure and economic structure that truly brings forward the equality among particularly the small and weak countries, which are formally not recognized, unfortunately, in the hegemonic world order. And this is to go back to what the UN Charter was suggesting, the equality, regardless of big or small, the equality of countries.
Thank you very much. We have to leave it there. Lots to unpack, but I hope we have already shed light on some of the key messages. Professor Yin Zhiguang and Sourabh Gupta, thank you for your insights.